How would a medieval knight really rescue Rapunzel? Hi folks, Matt Easton here, Schola Gladiatoria, and recently I was looking through a medieval manuscript and it answered the age-old question, how should a medieval knight rescue Rapunzel if her hair wasn't quite long enough? And this of course relates to ways that you can scale walls in siege warfare as well. Now most of you will know that there are certain things that we used to scale walls in the medieval period, such as grappling hooks with a rope, a simple ladder, or indeed something like a siege tower, which took a long time to build and was vulnerable to opposing weapons as well. But there were some other ways that you could sneak your way into a medieval fortification, and in this case, up a tower to rescue your princess. Now there are 4 really interesting ways shown in a manuscript which is from Germany dating to about 1470-1480 called the Hausbuch Wolfegg. And a housebook is something which contains lots of ideas and designs and theories and philosophy even sometimes. So essentially it's a medieval manuscript with a load of random stuff in it, but the Wolfegg housebook contains a bunch of military inventions, and some of these are ingenious and in some cases like ahead of their time, like ahead of when we thought they were invented, ways of getting into a medieval tower. So the first and most straightforward one is actually a collapsible ladder, a bit like those telescopic ladders, which I've actually got 2 of myself today. But this one folds up and each section then drops down and locks into the section below. So this is the way you can transport a ladder without it being hugely long and inconvenient to transport. You can pack it up, transport it to the place, erect it into a full long ladder, and then it's got wheels at the top and you can push it up the wall up to the height that you need to. The next is another form of ladder. It's actually quite like a rope ladder, but this one is made of sections that plug into each other, a bit like kind of scaffolding or a little bit like Lego actually. And essentially you can put the thing up with a hook, and then when you pull the rope at the bottom, the sections all unplug from each other and turn it into a rope ladder, which is obviously easier. A ladder is easier to climb up than a simple rope, and it's hooked over the top, which once it's got weight on it makes it harder for defenders, should there be any there, to unhook and get off the wall. So you can hopefully get up it quick enough that the defenders don't realise you're already on top of the battlements. Now the next amazing invention in the Hausbuch Wolfegg, which I didn't even for a second think was a real thing, is a form of cavalry lance. We can see it's a cavalry lance from the shape of the bottom. So you can see the kind of stop section there, and you can see the section where you hold. It is clearly a late 15th century cavalry lance, but instead of having a typical lance tip at the end, it has some sort of hook, almost bill-like extension at the side. So the idea presumably is to hook this over the top of the wall or the tower that you want to get up if you're rescuing Rapunzel. You hook it up, and then using a special contraption, which we'll talk about in a second, between the feet, it seems like, you then climb up the pole. So essentially you're using the lance with a hook at the end to climb up. Now what's interesting is some weapons have been historically used like this. So there's a certain type of Hungarian and kind of Czech axe, for example, which was carried by hikers and woodsmen. And that's sometimes used for climbing trees because you hook the head of the axe over a branch and then you pull yourself up with it. So this is actually a sort of tried and tested technology that has been used for centuries. And I think a lot of people don't think about that with something like axes or warhammers because they have a lateral perpendicular extension. You can hook them over things and they'll help you climb up. And in fact, boarding axes used in naval warfare, although they're usually slapped into the side of a ship and used as climbing steps, they can also be hooked over things like a rope or a mast or the side of the sort of gunwales or whatever, and help you pull yourself up as well. So anything that's like a hook, if it's got a shaft on it, even a pole axe, can be used for climbing up things. Now historically and ethnographically, there have been lots of types of what are now called ascenders, so climbing devices to help you climb up a rope or a pole or a tree more easily. In fact, some of these probably go back thousands of years and have been used, for example, to help people between their ankles to shin up palm trees, for example, to get coconuts out of the top. But here we see in the Wolfegg Hausbuch, we see an example of a climbing device, an ascender, that seems to be between the ankles, and there's a hint there that might be something up at the hands as well. But essentially this is just a person climbing up a rope, but doing it with mechanical assistance. And in fact, this is thought, my friend James Elmsley, in fact, on our Facebook page, linked below, James Elmsley, the famous sword and knife maker and the person who made the Elmsley typology for single-edged swords, he pointed out that this is, if you look at Wikipedia, this is thought to have been invented in the 20th century. But here we've got a manuscript from 1470-ish showing something like an ascender being used to climb up a rope. And as I mentioned, people have been using, you know, other sort of kind of homemade devices between their ankles to climb up palm trees, probably for thousands of years. So there we go, another example of a technology which you might think of as a modern thing actually being used in the medieval world. So there we go. We don't know if all of these things were real, but I don't see why they wouldn't have been. None of these are extremely high tech, and we find in other German and sometimes Italian treatises and manuscripts of this period, late 15th and as we go into the 16th century, various inventions, and some of you will know examples from Talhofer, for example, inventions that show things which weren't invented until much, much later. But clearly, much like Leonardo da Vinci, people were already starting to work out the theory of this stuff. So now you know, if you have a Rapunzel to rescue and you are a medieval knight, and you can't just throw up a simple grappling hook with a rope, or you're having troubles getting up the rope, maybe you haven't been working out as much as normal recently, there are other devices and ladders and contraptions available to you, even a lance in one case. And if you check out the Hausbuch Wolfegg, or Wolfegg it probably is, then you'll find some other amazing inventions and things in there. And maybe we'll be looking at the manuscript some more in future videos as well. Thanks a lot for watching. I have been Matt Easton. I will be again next time, and I hope to see you back on the channel. Cheers, folks. Thanks for watching. We've got extra videos on Patreon. Please give our Facebook a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Cheers, folks.